Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first edition of Taylor Talks. My name is Taylor Randall. I'm Dean of the David Eccles School of Business, and we're going to be coming to you periodically to bring you some fun and exciting discussions about all the innovation that's going on here at the David Eccles School of Business. Today, we're going to be talking about our newest center, the Center for Business, Health, and Prosperity. And I've got three superb guests that are going to be helping us understand what this center is about, what it's going to do, and how it's going to affect the world and nation at large. So let me do a few brief introductions. First, I'm excited to introduce Steve Alder. Steve is the Executive Director of the Center for Business, Health, and Prosperity. He's also the university's Special Advisor to West Africa and serves as the President of Ensign College in Ghana. He brings a wealth of experience from the public health sector. He's been a tenured professor here at the University of Utah since 1993. Steve, welcome. It's good to see you.
Okay.
Next, I'd like to introduce the center's academic co-chair, Jay Barney. Jay has been a professor here at the school since 2012. Prior to the University of Utah, he taught at UCLA, Texas A&M, and then most recently, the Ohio State University. Jay is an expert in the field of strategy, and particularly how a firm's resources lead to sustained competitive advantage. He's one of the foremost scholars in the field of strategy, and he's a member of our entrepreneurship and strategy department. Over the past few years, he's served as the editor-in-chief of the Academy of Management Review. We're lucky to have Jay with us here today, but also as a faculty member. Hi, Jay. How are you doing?
Hey, Taylor, I'm great.
Good. And then finally, we've got our center's administrative director, Allison Bringard. Allison has been at the university for probably over 2 decades. If you want something to get done at the University of Utah, you go to Allison. She is the interface between students and faculty. She is the one that gets things done, boots on the ground. Allison, thanks for being with us here today.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Well, let's get right into it and get started with a few questions. Steve, I want to start with you. What is the Center for Business, Health, and Prosperity, and how in the world did this thing get started?
Well, we're pretty excited to be active and launched on this. This is something that's been in the works for some time. And we are fortunate that here at the David Eccles School of Business, we were able to bring a lot of these ideas and dynamics together. There was thinking from the health side, how do we start to make some of these health interventions or changes, or how can we do a better job of sustainability in health work? At the same time, and we're so fortunate to be able to have folks like Jay Barney and someone of his stature that we have in the center, who was also thinking about these things coming from the strategy side. Of course, he's recognized that there are important elements of business and business activities that can impact communities for good. And he's been working on this for some time. And he may tell us about the epiphany he had that helped lead him to thoughts he had about launching a center. We were able to bring these ideas together and really think about this idea of prosperity. What is it that helps people, households and families, communities, nations, regions prosper? And we recognize that there are some key and essential elements. And so the center was established in order to bring 2 of these major elements: the ability to be healthy and well, to have the capacity to do good things and to live life well, while at the same time business, which would allow for the resources to have a well-lived life. And so there's been a lot of talk over time, good health is good for business, great. And good business is good for health, great. But why and how? And so that's something that we're embracing, is what is the intersection with the end goal of how can we do a better job of working with people, communities, groups all around the world to improve well-being and prosperity by helping to enhance the capacities that both business and health bring to the table.
As the dean of a business school, I was skeptical of this idea at first. It's not something you typically see in a business school. Jay, give us a little bit of the logic of how you saw the relationship between health and prosperity and kind of your vision of how these two things work together in a harmonious way.
Well, for me, it started many years ago, actually watching a documentary on television about the role of microfinance in economic development. And while I had no real expertise or background in economic development, my general impression was that most of the efforts to try to deal with economic development previously in the history of the world, certainly since the Second World War, particularly philanthropy and direct foreign aid, my sense was, A, they were ineffective, and B, they were deeply inconsistent with capitalist market principles that I understand. Perhaps that's why they were so deeply ineffective. But this documentary on microfinance suggested to me that there might be a way of thinking about development that was actually consistent with the way I understood how economies develop and evolve. So I didn't know anything about it, so I started teaching class. That's what I do. I'm a college professor, so I do professor things. And so I just started teaching a class, and over the years, developed a class where we would spend half a semester talking about different theories of economic development, and at the same time begin working with small companies overseas in developing economies, and then learn a lot about the relationship between business and economic development and health in these developing economies. I started working in Bolivia, but that was just too hard on the professors. It turns out, 14,000 feet on the Altiplano. That was tough. I spent 10 years working in Peru, and now we've gone to Ghana a couple times with groups of students. What we found is many of the projects we involved in, not all of them, many of them have a health angle. There's some health technology we want to get implemented. And they also always have a business angle too. But the classic example of this was an incredibly simple medical technology that was we were trying to help distribute in Peru. It was a clay pot, and this clay pot had certain chemicals in it. And you basically put the clay pot on the top of a plastic bucket. We're talking high technology here, okay? Clay pot on top of a big plastic bucket. And you poured water in it, and the water would sift through the clay pot, and it would become purified. It was remarkable. We actually, just for fun, we put a Diet Coke in the top of the clay pot, and it came out, it was just water. It was phenomenal. The technology clearly worked. And yet they could not sell it. They couldn't get anyone to do it. So we looked at it as a standard business problem, and then there were some manufacturing issues, there were some distribution logistics issues, but there was actually a more fundamental problem that the client organization had not realized, and that was most of the people who would be purchasing the pot didn't think the water was a problem. They had grown up with this water. They were fine. Actually, they weren't fine. And all the sort of straightforward ways of convincing them, like, here's a microscope. Let's look what's in your water. It wasn't convincing to them. That's just extra protein. I don't know, whatever it was. There was a fundamental marketing problem. The medical technology worked, but the business model wasn't in place that would allow us to actually make that medical technology available at a reasonable price. And there wasn't demand. And so we started examining alternative marketing mechanisms. For example, going into schools. The parents, we couldn't convince the parents, but we might convince the kids. Going into schools and explain to them why water was important. And there's a lot of things that came out of that process. So from the very beginning, I saw this intimate link between health on one hand and health technologies and addressing health issues in communities and business on the other. This was a harder argument to make, by the way, before COVID, but after COVID, it's kind of clear that the two are intimately linked. The specific idea for the center came, I had known only vaguely that the university had some sort of relationship with a college in Ghana. That's about all I knew. And And then I was actually in Europe for my classic academic research kinds of reasons. And I think I got an email from you, Taylor, saying, "Can you come to Ghana and for some sort of a celebration?" I said, yeah, so I extended for a week. The biggest problem was that I had clothes that were completely appropriate for Northern Europe and completely inappropriate for Ghana in terms of the heat involved. But in any case, so I just delayed my trip home and went down to Ghana for a few days. And on the way home, it's the middle of the night and I'm on the airplane, and I'm totally jet lagged. I don't even know what time zone I'm in. It struck me that with what I had seen at Ensign College, with what I had experienced in Peru and Bolivia and elsewhere, that there was a unique opportunity, and that frankly, the Echo School of Business and the University of Utah was the only place in the world that I was aware of that could actually pull this opportunity off, which was, we have a huge asset in a developing economy, a stable, safe developing economy in Ghana, this huge asset in public health, Ensign College. We have faculty from a lot of different areas across the university and in the College of Business who are interested in bringing together these two ideas. And so I wrote up this 2-page idea. And why don't we create this thing? And it became the Center for Business and Health and Prosperity, but that was a lot of iterations. I didn't even know what I called it. But the concept was bringing health and business together to try to address questions of prosperity, not just in developing economies, but in the United States as well, but certainly in developing economies. I wrote this 2-page thing up. I sent it to Taylor, and I don't know if what I remember you saying in the email back was, "This sounds like a great idea, let's do it." And so that's to me where this thing came from.
Well, Jay, it was easy for me to kind of jump on your enthusiasm. I will tell you that. And then Steve, you've been working in Ghana, for 15 years, or is it more than that?
A little more than that, but right about then, yes.
Right about, okay. Tell us a little bit about how you see the student experience in the interaction that our campus here will have with the campus in Ghana. And then Allison, I'd like to get your take. You've been to Ghana a lot with students. I'd like you to just maybe describe how it transforms student lives when they're there. Steve?
The nice thing is you can learn about these sorts of topics in a classroom, and there are great books. You can even get great photos. But until I think students have the chance to go and experience these realities firsthand, and to recognize not only what is taking place in places like Ghana, where when they go with this, they get to experience, they get to collaborate with partners who are Ghanaian and work in communities and work on projects that are real and are making an impact. But the students tend to go through a series of transitions. They get there, it's hot, it's humid. That's the first thing I think our students, especially coming from a dry climate like Utah, or even cooler climates in the Northern Hemisphere, sometimes will go to Ghana and feel that first. The second is they see chaos and poverty. The third is they start to recognize that the people that they're working with who come from these very different environments are actually much more like them than they're different. And then finally, they walk away not thinking about, hey, I went and there were these people over there, but they come back saying, I have these friends who happen to live in a different location, and this is something we did together, and I'm still in contact with them, and we're going to be lifelong friends. And so the opportunity for students to go, to experience, and to be part of even if sometimes it's in a limited way, part of making real change. It changes their lives. It changes, many of them will come back and change what they're doing in terms of the direction they take. It will impact them in very deep and profound ways. And so we've been fortunate to get to be part of this trend, part of this journey with students, part of the transition they get to go through in learning how to be a truly empathetic global citizen.
You know, I think, Steve, that's why I was so excited about this center coming and being built here at the school, is that experiential learning, and then the fact that we are going to be allowing students to go globally to see a very different part of the world, and I think it's going to increase the understanding of themselves. Allison, how does that magic happen? Steve just
So,
described the process. Yeah,
we've had opportunities to, bring high school students over all the way up through graduate level, students coming to on programs with us to Ghana. I would emphasize what Steve mentioned in terms of the practical experience that they, take with them for the rest of their lives, and the impact that has on them. And the other, unique aspect of this is that they really get to go engage with these communities firsthand. And it's really working with these communities. And I really emphasize that, because you really need to build those partnerships with the communities to build the trust. And it's just really eye-opening for these students. So we're really looking forward to expanding our programming. We want to go beyond even the graduate level. We would love to have some, continuing education courses, some, real world opportunities for people to come over and partner with us and continue to learn and build on, what they've maybe learned earlier on in their career.
so let me ask you, and Allison, Steve, Jay, we've got a lot of alumni that are actually listening right now. If they wanted to have an experience like this, how could they get involved in the center?
Yeah, there's some great ways that our alums and friends can get involved. We want to give people the opportunity to go firsthand and experience it with us. We are, as the pandemic hopefully winds down here in the near future, and we get back to connecting not only via Zoom with the rest of the world, but actually face to face with the rest of the world. We have opportunities, and as Allison mentioned, there will be opportunities for continuing education courses. There will be opportunities to come and roll up sleeves and work side by side on making a difference in these different parts of the world. We are certainly very interested in putting the greatest minds to work on the challenges we face in terms of helping to promote prosperity. And we need all sorts of perspectives, ideas, expertise that can come together. That's why it's important to have a center. It's much more difficult to do this in a coordinated way without some sort of a base to use to bring these resources together and synthesize them into some important approaches to this prosperity development. So we just ask that anybody who's interested, reach out to us. Let's talk, let's find out what the interests are. And in all likelihood, we're going to have a place that people will be able to fit with us and do something meaningful that will be both meaningful to them, but also we believe will have an impact.
No,
Thanks,
it's interesting, Taylor. I was teaching this class many years before there was any center even conceived of. One thing I've done over the years is I go and then I invite one or two other faculty members to come with me and work with students. So we have 3 projects, and each team project has its own faculty member, sort of helps them. And not only are students transformed by this experience, but the faculty are transformed by this experience. And that's why I'm confident that as we find ways to engage our alums in this effort, that they will also have these experiences. A lot of people do this kind of work. They'll go down to Peru, where I've spent a lot of time, and dig wells, or they'll help build schools in Ghana. And all those things are very useful. But what we do is we leverage our human capital, our brains, and our experience, and go help businesses be more successful in implementing health and non-health related business opportunities. A real brief story, I'll keep it short. One of our clients in Peru was a women's Cui cooperative. Cui is guinea pig. Guinea pig is a very important source of protein throughout the Andes region. And the raising of guinea pigs is culturally women's work. And so this was the second largest women's cooperative in Cui cooperative in Peru. And their question was, should they continue to buy guinea pig food from the local supplier, or should they make their own guinea pig food? Now, this is the kind of a question that is right down, Main Street for business professors. That would be a make or buy decision, plastic vertical integration choice. Actually, in the United States, it would be a trivial analysis because you would assume that the guinea pig food market was reasonably competitive, so you would not vertically integrate into it. That is not the case in Peru. There's only one provider of guinea pig food in Cusco, and he's doing exactly what a good monopolist should do, which is to basically be inefficient and charge high prices. So our student group put together a 35 variable Excel spreadsheet model, collected all the data necessary to estimate the model, ran the results, including, by the way, getting real market prices for products rather than what was literally called gringo prices for products, and put them all together and showed that in this specific context, under certain conditions, that if they made their own food, their profits per guinea pig would go up dramatically, 30% or something like that, a lot. Business analysis, straightforward, and then the presentation. So there are 50-some women in the room, and all ambitious, all depending to a large extent on what we would consider relatively meager income, say $10 a day from their guinea pig operations, but nevertheless very important to them financially. And as our students presented the analysis, the women started to weep because it wasn't just about vertical integration and the business problem. It wasn't a homework assignment. It could change their lives. It could increase their incomes dramatically. And that has all sorts of ramifications. And as the students, as the women began to weep, the students, our hard-bitten MBA students, buttoned down, straight, they began to weep. And the professors, including myself, how can you not be transformed by that experience? How can you not see these people in a different way and understand their problems in a different way? It was a life-changing experience for many, many people. And that's the kind of thing that we want to find ways to increase, to scale that. One of the biggest challenges with my classes is the scaling problem. It's just, I take 15 people. I want to take 100 people. I want to take 1,000 people. If we can increase the vision so that somehow we can provide these experiences, not just in Peru, not just in Africa, Ghana, not elsewhere, all around the world, I think that the cumulative impact can be really tremendous.
I think it's stories like those that we're so excited about what this center is going to be able to do. This center isn't just about being in Africa, though. It isn't just about being overseas. It's about some of the things that we can do here. Steve, Allison, tell us a little bit about how you've been involved in the COVID crisis and what you've been doing here at home in Salt Lake City in the state of Utah.
Yeah, I'm happy to start that conversation off. We have been involved with the Utah Health and Economic Recovery Outreach Project since April of last year. This project engages with communities in Utah to provide randomized testing for COVID-19. And the data that we've been collecting has provided the state with information on how the infection rates are impacting communities. And it also helps the state to inform the state on how to safely reopen the economy. Another aspect of the project has been we've surveyed consumers and businesses on behaviors related to COVID-19 and how that's impacted the economy. And that's also led to help shape policy decisions.
Yeah, you can imagine we were trying to get the center established, and there's all sorts of approvals we were going through, and the pandemic hit us at an awfully inconvenient time. It would have been actually nice if the pandemic could have waited a bit, but we were, as Allison mentioned, we were pulled into this world where there were health concerns, there were economic concerns, and in many places those were completely separate. And we were asked to bring together a group that could think of health and economics together. That was the merging of multiple cultures during a pandemic. That's not necessarily something that's recommendable, but we did it. We brought a terrific team together, a team that continues to this day to work together, and we're able to start thinking about the balance of health considerations and economic considerations. And as Allison describes, we have projects that are looking at these consumer sentiments. We have projects that are looking at what's happening with the viral spread in the community that's outside of the normal detection method, so we could get a true understanding of what was taking place. At the end of the day, it has been a terrific value and benefit to the state of Utah, and has helped us to navigate a very complicated situation. And this is the sort of thing that this, as Jay mentioned, it's a lot easier to explain business health and prosperity after the pandemic than it was before. Before, people were saying, well, why do you bother? You've got a health sciences, you got a business school. Why do you need to bring them together? And now people don't ask those questions. And the sorts of things we've learned from that, we can now take to other areas. Jay describes, this situation where students are there working with communities. As Allison said, we don't do stuff to communities or for communities or at communities. We work with communities. And you see the profound impact that kind of work has. We're now tackling last mile health. How do you get health to communities in rural emerging market countries that just don't really have access at this stage? But how can we take business principles? How can we take this idea, for instance, of franchising and apply it to what's typically been a philanthropic enterprise? So we're starting to dive into topic areas such as social franchising, and how does social franchising marry these worlds? There are so many things that we have the opportunity to do, and I think as you hear Jay describe, we're just scratching the surface. There is so much good that can come out of our bringing these ideas together and emphasizing and focusing on the idea of prosperity. So we're thrilled to get to be working together on this.
As we close, I want to give each of you kind of one moment, maybe one sentence to describe why you're so excited about this center. Allison, let's start with you.
I would say the endless opportunities that are out there that we can be working on, and the partnerships that I think we're going to develop. I'm really excited about that.
Steve.
I second what Allison says, and I'll add, and our opportunity to have a profound impact.
Jay.
Yeah, I think all of us at the Echo School of Business and most people in the academic world should consider ourselves deeply blessed at this period of time. And what the center does is it gives us an opportunity in a small way to not pay back, because that's not possible, but to pay forward. That is to share our expertise and our knowledge with other people in ways that can have an impact. And the great irony here, of course, is that in having an impact on these people and their lives, it has an impact on our lives and who we are as people. And that's why the center is so exciting for me.
Well, Jay, Steve, Allison, thanks for being with us in this first edition of Taylor Talks. I'm just looking forward to seeing what this center will do. It'll have a massive impact on the world and on our students especially. Now we're going to turn the time over to Megan, who's going to take some questions from our audience today. Megan?
Bye.
Thank you, Taylor. What a great discussion. I'm looking forward to diving into some of our questions from all of you, our audience. Steve, I'm going to turn our first question to you. This person asks, how will the newly formed center target social determinants of health in our Utah community?
Great, thank you, Megan. That's a terrific question. Of course, social determinants of health are critical in any aspect of life, and especially as we think about people having prosperous life experiences. These are those factors in life that really have an influence that are often outside of the control of the individual. And so with any work that we do, we have to think ecologically. We have to think about context because context matters. So as we approach the mission of this newly formed center, we will definitely be thinking about in each of our activities the social determinants of health. This occurs, of course, domestically, locally here in the Salt Lake area, the Salt Lake metropolitan area, throughout the state of Utah, and globally. Often we think about our work internationally and we think, well, there are some structural challenges that are faced by individuals in other countries that we really don't have to worry about in our own neighborhoods, when in fact, we maybe are just too familiar with those same sorts of challenges that people face in our immediate surrounding area. So as we think about these pillars of prosperity, business, and the ability to create value through business and business innovation and all that goes into that, and these best practices for maintaining and promoting good health, we will definitely be thinking about how does the context matter and how can we work on solutions that can be adapted to or specifically created for the circumstances that people face. So thank you, terrific question. Glad to have been able to respond to it.
Thank you. Allison, our next question I'm going to point towards you. How has the pandemic affected the strategic initiatives of the center and its more short-term goals?
Thank you, Megan. The COVID-19 pandemic has really provided us an opportunity. We've been able to participate in the Health and Economic Recovery Outreach Project, which we spoke about earlier. We've been involved in this since really early on, since last April, and we've been able to provide some valuable data back to the state to help guide decisions and policies regarding COVID-19. This project really fits well with the center's concept of improving the lives of others. We were able to, better understand how COVID-19 was impacting communities, really was posing a threat on our citizens of our state and impacted the health of individuals and the health of our economy. And what we really need are healthy, skilled citizens to help contribute back to the health of the economy. As a parent, I was impacted having my kids back at home and then trying to juggle the work-life balance. So, HERO was able to step in, and not only did we provide some randomized testing to find out what was going on in the communities, but we were able to help give information back to the state of Utah that helped decision makers figure out how to open up schools safely. And we even were able to give some, recently we just were able to provide the CDC with some guidelines on, continuing wearing masks in the elementary schools, but we were able to be able to give them distance measures of 3 feet versus the 6 feet, which was posing some challenges there. And then we've also been able to, work with businesses, engage with the local businesses to find out how they've adapted things with the COVID impact and what's been successful that they've been able to survive through this. So really it's just working hand in hand with the community, trying to understand how to get information back to the state to help get information out to people, maybe to change their behaviors so that, we can move forward.
Thank you, Allison. Jay, I've got a question for you. What are some of the existing hurdles for small and medium-sized enterprises in developing countries to obtain capital to finance and to grow their businesses?
And one of the longer term challenges that developing economies have faced for decades is that they have historically been separated from the international financial system. So they had to rely on local capital, mostly sweat equity, hard work, individual initiative, with relatively little growth capital. Over the last 20 years or so, we've seen some really significant changes in those areas. It started with simply the recognition, certainly first in China and India, of the role of foreign direct investment by firms in the West into those developing economies, typically with local joint venture partners. And those Western firms would provide both know-how and financial capital. And so a lot of the growth, especially in China, that we've seen, the growth of the middle class, the growth of their economy as a whole, can be traced back in many ways to those joint ventures. Ironically, while I think the press has emphasized appropriately the dangers of those kinds of joint ventures, that is, your intellectual capital could be appropriated by joint venture partners, there are some examples of where actually the knowledge flow has gone the other way as well. You have to balance these things out. I was at a conference once and was talking to a very senior person in General Electric's medical imaging group, and GE had opened up an operation in China, the purpose of which was to manufacture parts that would then be used in medical imaging devices that would be assembled back in the United States or elsewhere. And then those medical imaging devices would then turn around and be shipped back to China, sometimes to the local market. But what they discovered relatively quickly was that the number of times that these are not just X-ray machines, but MRI machines, the number of times those machines are used per day in China, it turns out to be much higher than the number of times they're used per day in, say, the United States. Maybe 10 in the United States versus 30 times in China. So the volume of use, and it turns out that the machines that were built for the US market were not designed to be turned on and off that often. And so they were having some reliability problems in China. So the Chinese operation of GE redesigned the systems, redesigned the machines, and started selling those redesigned systems, the machines that were more appropriate for the Chinese market. And they were smaller and they were less sophisticated in many ways, but they addressed the marketplace. Well, ironically, it turns out that there was substantial global demand for that technology that had been invented in China. So pretty soon, the Chinese factories were actually exporting machines that were originally designed for the Chinese market to other global markets, including the United States, but also South America and Africa and others. So the joint venture model has been a really good way of combining know-how and access to capital that has had a huge impact, certainly on the most obvious cases are China and India. Around the same time period over the last 20 years, there's also been this growth in microfinance, which is like the extreme opposite of the joint venture foreign direct investment model, where it's gaining access to capital. And here is very small loans given to individuals, primarily women, to help them operate very small businesses. This turns out to be a relatively profitable business from a banking point of view. So it's consistent with market capitalism, as I understand it. You have to make a profit in order to make these things work. But it's really designed to help these women. The recent research raises some question about whether this is really that these microfinance loans are actually a source of economic development. And since we understand that term, most of the businesses that are funded, the data suggests, are not highly scalable or not a source of employment, those kinds of things. But they do stabilize these women's incomes and also provide just enough extra income that they might have longer term implications. Let me give you a real brief example. I was at a microfinance meeting in Bolivia many years ago, and there were 12 women there, and it's a weekly event where they basically pay back the loans and they count the money, and it took an extra 10 minutes because they were the equivalent of 5 cents off, and we're never off. So I appreciated that. But afterwards, after they went through that process, I asked them how this had helped their lives, this microfinance. It was interesting. They didn't talk about current income. It didn't massively change. It helped some, just enough. I said, well, what's just enough? Well, we were able to keep our kids, and they mentioned sons primarily, our sons in school. And then they went to college. And there were 3 of the 10 women there whose sons had graduated from college, first time with engineering degrees. That of course, transformative. That changes everything, not just for the son, but also for the broader family. So I think we have to understand the effects of microfinance and access to capital, not just as a economic development scheme, but also as a way to actually have longer term effects. That has not been studied very systematically, at least I'm not aware it's been studied. The third thing that's happened more recently is the growth in what might be called, it was called impact investing. And what impact investing is it's not foreign direct investment. It's not a company bringing and opening up a factory in China or South India or something. And it's not microfinance, very, very small. These are actually mutual funds that are generally raised in the West, who are designed to invest in growth opportunities in developing economies. Some of them have explicit social missions. Some of them have missions that say our primary job is to grow businesses, because we think the most important impact you can have on people's lives in a developing economy is for them to have stable and secure employment. But this has been a growing trend. In fact, we have an institution that we call sort of our sister institution, a sister center here at the University of Utah, called the Sorensen Institute for Impact Investing, that actually does research and training and things in this area. These are all good, positive developments. I'm not suggesting that they totally address the problem of access to capital in developing economies, but nevertheless, I think they have had certainly a positive impact on those problems.
Thank you, Jay. Now, we've talked a lot about what the center's already done, which it's amazing, seeing as this is a brand new center, how much you guys have been able to accomplish in the short amount of time you've been an official center. But let's look forward for our final question of the day. Where do you see the work of the center going in a year from now? Where do you see the work going in 5 years from now? I'll open that up to any of you guys who want to join in on that.
Megan, thanks. And that is a great question. We have found ourselves really at an interesting time as the center has launched. As we've talked about the various areas that we feel are important that have been understudied, as Jay talked about. We've talked about this work that's been done with helping the Utah response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So the center came online at a very fortuitous time, and that's why we're talking so much about what we have done. For a new center, this is really quite unusual. Usually, this is the time of really starting up and getting things moving, and we sort of launched the center as we were mid-stride on a lot of these very important activities. And we have so much now that we can start focusing as we transition out of some of these activities, hopefully as we're hopeful as everyone is that the pandemic will be resolving soon and we can get beyond it. We have partnerships and activities that we've really placed on hold during this time of responding to the world challenge of a pandemic. And so certainly things that we'd like to get back to. We are working now on reactivating a lot of our partnerships around the world, because we truly feel that while we have some very interesting things that happen at the University of Utah and in Utah, really this is something that is a domestic challenge when we think about the challenges of pursuing and optimizing prosperity for people. Our opportunity now is that we can learn and contribute around the world so that what we have here at the University of Utah is the best, the minds coming together, is the latest thinking, is a chance to really be innovative and thoughtful in this space. And that includes our work from working on applied projects similar to those that we've described, to having strong and important educational programs so that students from the University of Utah and partner institutions can be on the forefront of learning, so that they can take that into their lives and go forward with that as they launch into lifelong careers. We have the opportunities to partner with institutions, certainly our partnerships, for instance, in Ghana, and our emerging partnerships in Asia are quite important to us, and we want to make sure we work on those. So the portfolio of activities that will be housed within the center will range across these, from education, from applied projects, research, and determining these principles and models that will help us move forward. So we're quite excited about that. I'll sort of lastly just say that we are so fortunate and to have so many great assets at the University of Utah. Jay mentioned working with our colleagues out of the David Eccles School of Business, Impact Investing, through the collection of Sorensen activities. Allison talked about our work with partners in the state, health departments, business leaders. We're able, a center's role is to bring people together, bring these resources and assets together to synergize those and really do something that is better than what each of these groups could do individually.
You know, it's a great answer, Steve. I appreciate that. We were just talking this morning, Steve and I, about a class we hope to be teaching this fall that includes a trip to Ghana for a group of students to help small businesses in Ghana grow and be more successful. That's contingent on a number of factors. We all understand that, but we also are in initial conversations about a conference that we would like to sponsor that brings together the leading academics and practitioners in this space from around the world to come visit us in Utah. The timing of that is still uncertain. Location, there's lots of questions we don't know, but we are committed to the idea, and I'm sure it will happen. It's interesting, when we got approval for this center from the University Senate, which is a faculty group, that large faculty group that approves these kinds of things. The major criticism we got is that there are so many people interested in these issues on campus, you got to reach out even more. Now, we thought we had reached out a lot, but there were whole pockets of interest on campus of which we were unaware. And so we one of the things we promised to do was to hold this conference. So, but this will be a conference not just for people at the University of Utah. We hope to invite people from around the world to come and share their research, their ideas, their experiences, and we can learn from each other in the process. So look forward to that.
Thank you, Jay. Well, Allison, you guys here. I know I'm really looking forward to seeing the center continue to grow and the impact that you guys will have on our local community and globally. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. And thank you, viewers, for joining us today. I hope that you guys will continue to join us for our upcoming alumni virtual events that we have coming up. Next week, we will be live virtually again, of course, with our next Eccles Alumni Forum, Selling Social. We'll be joined by Eccles alumni and marketing experts to learn more about influencer marketing. If you're interested in joining us for that, you can sign up at eccles.link/forum. And if you haven't heard already, be sure to check out season 1 of the brand new Eccles Business Buzz podcast, the official podcast of the David Eccles School of Business. This season, we were able to connect with some of our amazing alumni to talk all about empathy. Check it out today, wherever you listen to podcasts, or go to eccles.link/businessbuzz. Thank you to all of our viewers for joining us today. We hope to see you virtually at one of our upcoming events. And go Utes. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Bye-bye.